Hello and welcome to the Golden Playbook. If you're watching this video, I assume you know that the NFL draft is less than a week away. With that being said, we're going to take a look at the last three draft classes, how they fared during their rookie fantasy seasons, and if we can use that as any indication how this rookie class is going to perform this season. I'm going to rifle through all of the main fantasy relevant positions: QB, running back, wide receiver, tight end. As a little overview, this is a loaded running back class, if you're unaware. The quarterbacks and receivers are not as strong as last year's class especially, but this running back class should have lots of studs in it. Lots of fantasy relevant guys, so it should be very exciting. Before we hop in, all I ask you to do is smash that subscribe button. It really helps me out. Let me know what kind of content you guys want to see. I'm just really excited for the NFL draft to see where these guys end up, see where their landing spots are, and then we'll be able to have a better idea of where they'll be able to fit into our rankings. Can't wait to do updated rankings with the rookies in them, so make sure you subscribe and stay tuned for that journey. All right, enough blabbering. Let's get straight into the quarterbacks. I've kind of put up on the screen the rookie quarterbacks that were relevant or semi-relevant during their seasons. Obviously, last year had probably the most success for rookie quarterbacks, with Jaden and Bo both being in the top 10 and Caleb in the top 16. Guys like May and Penix, who both did not start the season as the starter for their team, and I indicated that with how many games they started, both ended up doing pretty well. And I put what their points per game were during those games played, just so we had a little bit better idea of how they were doing, just because they didn't have a full season to stack up all of their stats. But as you can see, the two seasons prior to that, there was not great quarterback play out of the rookies, outside of Stroud being the lone one. Obviously, Richardson got hurt, so we didn't get to see his full rookie season potential, but we kind of see what he has turned out to so far. And the main thing that I think we should take away from this is that last year was most likely an anomaly. I don't see with this QB class that we have coming in anyone being able to put up the top 10 QB numbers, especially not this season. I just don't see it as a strong enough rookie class for quarterbacks. Outside of Cam Ward, of course, supposed to be going number 1 overall to the Titans. If that's the case, I could see him having, at the ceiling, I could see him having a CJ Stroud type season. Cam Ward is just not the running quarterback that Daniels or Nix is. And he's more of a pocket passer like Stroud. Has some athleticism to move around, but is always looking to throw the ball. So I really see his ceiling as that kind of QB9 that Stroud did in his rookie season. But realistic expectations, I see him being, a good quarterback 2, top 24 option. Probably played better than Bryce did in his rookie season, but I don't see him having the top 10 quarterback finish that the guys did from last season. Cam Ward is the main quarterback that is going to be drafted to be the starter. Other guys that, depending on their landing spot, have a good chance of fighting for that starting job, if not at the beginning of the season at some point. Obviously, Shedeur has since fallen down draft boards. For a long time, it was Cam Ward 1, Shedeur 2, but he seems to have fallen down, so we have to see where he lands. If he's even a round 1 pick, that'll be interesting to find out. More kind of athletic freak, Jalen Milroe. I think he'll be a work in progress, much like Anthony Richardson. Just kind of a raw athlete, not a great thrower of the football. So we'll see, again, where these guys end up. And then the last guy who's really raising some interest, Jackson Dart. Talks he could come up to round 1, but I see him as a round 2 quarterback. I think he, depending on the landing spot, I'll say that a million times, it'll get old. But I think he could vie for a starting job at some point and really make some noise. Another guy who's a good athlete, not necessarily looking to run the ball all the time like Milroe is, but much like Cam Ward, can dance around in the pocket, buy time for his receivers to get open down the field. But I think the main guy we will be talking about in our rankings is Cam Ward at this point in time.
Hello everyone, this is Copper speaking. Please get us to 100 subscribers so my dad will get me thick cut bacon. It's my favorite thing on this earth. Love you guys. Thank you for the support.
Shake. Shake. Good boy. Moving on to the much more loaded running back room. This is a huge draft class for running backs. Obviously, last year was very thin. Outside of Bucky and Tyrone, no running backs inside the top 40 for the rookies. If you'll remember, there was not a round one running back taken last year. Jonathan Brooks was the first one taken, obviously coming off the ACL. Seemed to be the most talented guy, but injury luck has not gone his way. And then just a lot of day 2, day 3 picks that outside of, like I said, Bucky and Tyrone Tracy had not, come into anything or were not given the opportunity to do so. This running back room is going to be closer to probably the 2022 room, just with the sheer number of running backs drafted. There's 24 running backs drafted that year. I think, honestly, there could be more drafted this season. That's how deep the running back room is. However, I think the top end is as strong as the 2023 room, where they had, obviously, Bijan and Jahmyr Gibbs. Obviously, the belle of the ball is Ashton Jeanty. That's no secret. He's going to be probably a top 10 pick. I doubt he slides much further than that. People are saying he's the best draft prospect at the running back position since Saquon. So his ceiling really could be unlimited if he goes to a room where he's just the guy, absolute RB1 stud, getting the workload he should get. Sky's the limit. RB1 could legitimately be in play for Ashton Jeanty this season. That's how good of a talent he is. But as you'll see, outside of last season when it was a little bit worse of a draft class, there's a good 4 to 6 running backs coming out of the rookie class that are going to be, top 36-ish options. RB3s are better, which for a rookie season really isn't too bad, isn't too solid. And there's a lot of names that got drafted that aren't on this list. And what that means is just because they didn't have a stud rookie season, like some of these guys did, doesn't mean their fantasy career or ceiling or probability is eliminated. For example, out of that 2022 class, guys like James Cook, Kyron Williams, obviously Breece got injured that season, but all the guys that didn't have huge rookie seasons that have obviously turned into excellent fantasy running back options. So I just want to put that out there to say, if you have a guy you have a great feeling about for this season or for further seasons, if he does not pan out as a rookie, do not completely, cross them off your list or doubt them, because plenty of guys who don't get the right opportunities or are still kind of adapting to the NFL game doesn't mean that they can't. It just means that it didn't quite happen in their rookie season. Some guys to be on the lookout for this year, outside of Ashton Jeanty, obviously, Omarion Hampton out of North Carolina. He's expected to be a first-round running back. A little bit bigger of a guy, took a pretty big workload at North Carolina. Is expected to be a very solid guy. A guy who's been shooting up rankings, at least from the people that I'm looking at, Travion Henderson out of Ohio State. Kind of a dual threat guy. Comps to Aaron Jones, that kind of player who can run, receive. Just a very explosive athlete who is shooting up the rankings. Other names I want you to be kind of thinking in your head of guys that are going to be drafted probably day 2. Caleb Johnson out of Iowa, absolute beefy stud. Same with Quinshon Judkins out of Ohio State. And then a speedster in Dylan Sampson from Tennessee. People are going to think he's just a speedster, but he can have a Devon Achane prototype. Obviously, no one is going to be to the level of Achane just by pure speed and quickness. But Sampson is kind of trying to fit that mold, if you will. I think, if he gets to a team where they use him in space quite a lot, Sampson could be a great fantasy asset. And then lastly, the absolute bruiser out of Arizona State, Cam Scatabo, kind of got famous during the college football playoffs, just kind of put Arizona State on his back. He is about a year or two older than a lot of these guys that are coming out. That shouldn't weigh too heavy on us, but we'll see if he's a day 2. He might sneak to the day 3. But yeah, these are the guys that we should be looking out for. Like I said, usually 4 or 5 running backs at least are being top 36 options throughout the season. So once we find out the landing spots on a lot of these guys, we'll be able to kind of make our predictions about how good of a fantasy rookie season they're going to have. with Ashton Genty being at the top of the list. We move on to the wide receivers. Last year's wide receiver class turned out to be an excellent group of rookies. 3 guys making the top 13. Obviously, Brian Thomas, Malik Neighbors, Lad McConkey. Coming into last year's draft, we knew it was a pretty wide receiver heavy group, especially at the top. I don't think this year's class is quite that talented at the top ends. I think there's a sneaky amount of depth to the wide receiver position in this draft, much like the 2023 draft class, where there was just solid names kind of throughout day 2 and even sneaking into day 3. And just because a guy is a day 3 pick, we don't want to write them off completely. Plenty of guys drafted 4th, 5th round that over the course of the summer, training camp, and into the fall, they turn into really solid options. They start to earn trust with their teams. So just maybe if you're into a guy and he happens to fall a little bit, I would not count him out, especially if he ends up with a team in a good position where he could get a good target share. For a lot of these guys, it's going to come down to opportunity. And for the most part, the consensus top wide receiver in this class is Tet McMillan out of Arizona. Just an absolute beast of a dude, 6'5", 212 pounds. Could really stretch the field as a deep threat, even at his 6'5" stature. Very interested to see where he ends up. I think he could be an absolute stud. Our biggest question mark is obviously Travis Hunter. We haven't really had a situation like this in fantasy, at least not in a long, long time, where he could probably be a stud wide receiver. And if he was coming into the league as just a wide receiver, we would feel so much better, and he would probably be in contention for that number 1 receiver spot for this class. With that being said, he's obviously trying to play both sides of the ball. We have to see what team drafts him and what they allow him to do. Are they going to allow him to be the two-way player and get the full amount of offensive snaps, or are they going to limit his offensive snaps to 60, 70%, or even worst case, less than that? I think his talent, he should be able to play both. We just have to see what his opportunity brings. So that's going to be one of the trickier situations to navigate throughout the fantasy offseason here. Other guys to be on the lookout for: Luther Burden out of Missouri, absolute speedster. Had a great 2023 season at Missouri. Last year, his stats took a dip. Some people are concerned about it, others not so much. The talent is there. We have to just see. A lot of these guys is going to come down to where they get drafted. Emeka Egbuka out of Ohio State, going to be a good slot receiver. Probably won't be your wide receiver 1 alpha type, but like I said, going to play in the slot, good possession guy. Great for a PPR league. Matthew Golden, absolute speedster out of Texas. A Umanor from Stanford. Jaden Higgins out of Iowa State. And last guy I'll kind of mention, Trey Harris from Ole Miss. A lot of guys getting some buzz. Look out for the day 1, day 2 picks for those guys. Like I said, probably not as top heavy as the 2024 class was. That was obviously a spectacular class, but sneaky amount of depth. Probably going to be lots of viable options coming out of this rookie class. And don't write them out if they don't have the amazing season. Much like Marv Harrison last year, obviously didn't live up to the hype, the expectations. Don't write those guys off, because that's when they take the next step and really reach their prime. Much like the 2022 class, where you have Garrett Wilson, Olave, London, Pickens, all guys obviously, up and down fantasy, but shown the talent that they can be. None of those guys were even top 20 in their rookie season. So don't write their guy off if they don't produce at the NFL level right away. Lastly, I don't have a graphic for the tight ends, but we'll talk about them briefly. It's basically a 2-man show. Obviously, we've seen the tight end 1 be rookies the last 2 seasons. I don't think that's going to continue. That's been crazy. Laporta and Bowers, especially Bowers, have been elite prospects coming out. We knew they were going to be kind of great. And we have a similar guy this year in Tyler Warren, who's expected to be a top 10, top 12 pick. Although I think he will be great, I don't think he'll be a tight end 1 in his rookie season. I think that kind of 2-year streak ends just because there's so many good tight ends right now in the league. But don't get me wrong, I think Tyler Warren will be a tight end, not the tight end 1, but a tight end 1 this upcoming season. Especially, he's going to be drafted to a tight end needy team, hopefully one that would love to use him to his skill set. and he can do just a little bit of everything at the tight end position. And then the other guy who's not quite in Warren's tier, but should be a first-round pick is Colston Loveland, out of Michigan. Bigger dude, but runs routes much like a receiver, in my opinion. I think he'll be able to get open down the field, much like a George Kittle, kind of chunk play kind of guy. He's the other main tight end that we're looking at in this year's class. Outside of that, barring anything crazy happening or an outrageous landing spot, I don't think we're going to get too much of a fantasy relevant guy. It's going to be mostly a two-horse race. But as we've seen, there's been some good rookie tight end fantasy production with Laporta and Bowers the last 2 seasons. All right. I know the past doesn't affect the future, but this is kind of good to look back on the last 3 drafts just to see how players are truly doing in their rookie season. We get up with all this hype, all this buzz during draft season, off season, but it's good to really take a look. Where did these rookies finish during their rookie seasons? And then also seeing how they did, shortly after that, so we can kind of set some realistic expectations for this 2025 class. Although I'm very excited for them and for the NFL draft coming next Thursday. Stay tuned for next week. We're going to have obviously the draft reaction video. I'll be recording that video after the day 2. So we will see where a bunch of these top studs get drafted to. And we'll slowly start putting them into the rankings. Other than that, make sure you smash that like button. Comment down a guy you're very excited to see where he lands. Who do you want to be drafted to your team? My Seahawks, we need to draft O-lineman like it's going out of style. With that being said, I'm sure we'll draft a running back in the first round. Again, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Me and Copper, once we hit 100 subscribers, are going to be eating thick cut bacon. So if you're not doing it for me, do it for the young boy. And you can do so by clicking on my logo here. If not, go ahead and watch last week's video here. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll catch you on the next one. Peace.